Today I am going to talk about The Gilda Stories by Jewel Gomez. This is a book I had been meaning to read for quite some time, and it was interesting, to say the least. The focus of this book is on a black girl. At the start of the book, her mother passes away from working on a plantation. I don't remember exactly if she was killed by the plantation owner or died by some other means, but our protagonist then runs away. She's trying to save herself. She's upset her mother passed away, understandably. And before she is assaulted by somebody, she is rescued by Gilda. Now, this is not the same Gilda that we follow for the rest of the book, but I'll get to that in a bit. So, Gilda takes our protagonist back to the brothel that she runs, and takes her in as an adopted daughter and helps to raise her into teenagerhood and young adulthood. In the process, Gilda is introduced to Bird, who is an indigenous woman who is very close to Gilda. When our protagonist becomes old enough, Gilda approaches her and makes a request. Gilda wants to induct her into this super secretive group that both her and Bird are part of, and reveals that she is in fact a vampire. And she informs our protagonist of the ins and outs of what being a good vampire really is, because there is a differentiation between the vampires that care about humans and don't want to harm them, and the ones that don't give a damn and just, the ones that we're used to seeing, right? So our protagonist willingly decides to become a vampire. Gilda begins the process and then counts on Bird to finish the process, and Gilda herself goes to end her life. This is something that she wanted to do for a while. Our protagonist more or less takes the place of Gilda and takes on her name for her own. So the Gilda we follow for the rest of the book is not this first Gilda we're introduced to, but the protagonist, the black girl, now a woman, who we've known from the beginning and we follow for the rest of the book. With the exception of the first chapter, in which it's basically a quick rundown of what happened to Gilda through childhood and into when she becomes a young adult, every other chapter for the rest of the book occurs in a very specific year, and very specific things happen at that time. So we follow Gilda through the next couple hundred years, as she learns more about herself as a vampire. She interacts with other vampires as well, and what she learns along the way, what she learns in the value of learning from those that came before her, learning that humans are not to be feared or hated. She chooses to be more of the world than away from the world, which is a very interesting approach. One of the things I found that was very interesting about vampires in this book is that vampires are more or less, they look very much like humans on the outside, right? They are very sensitive to the light of the sun, so it can kill them. If they jump into the water can also kill them. But they don't have fangs, they don't, on outward appearances, look much different at all from humans, so it's easier for them to masquerade among humans themselves. In fact, what Gilda and Bird usually do themselves in order to take blood from humans is, instead of using their teeth, they use their nails to create a bit of a slice in the neck to drink from that a little bit, and then once they've taken what they need, they then work on trying to seal it up. And part of what makes them different from other vampires is the fact that it's a give and take approach that they are taught to utilize. That the good vampires of the world do a give and take. So if the humans give their blood, the vampires give something back in regards to maybe helping them gain confidence in something. They use their powers to search the minds of their victims, and they learn of something that maybe there's a goal in mind that they had that they're not quite confident enough to pursue. So maybe what they might do with their powers over the humans that they go after is they might help to push them more in that direction, help to give them that confidence to do what they need to do. You know what I mean? It's a very interesting way to look at it, and that is more or less what differentiates them from the vampires that only want to kill humans for their blood, and that's it. Now, the Guild of Stories is known primarily for being a piece of lesbian fiction, as well as being a piece of vampire fiction. But don't go into this book assuming that there's going to be any graphic sex or anything. There is an implication that there is something sexual that happens between Gilda and Bird later on, and maybe some other times down the line, but it is not graphic in any way. It's only very basically described as like a before and an after type thing for the most part. Gilda makes it clear that she is only interested in women and only ever has been. So it's not, if you're worried about there being too much of that in there, don't. It's not shoehorned in. It's just a natural part of the book as things go on. You know, it comes up only when it's necessary for it to come up, and that's it. So my type of vampire that I prefer, both reading and writing, are normally the ones that are the monsters, right? The ones that, you know, don't really care about humans and whatever, because humans are their food. They're the cattle to them, so they are very much monstrous. They're unapologetic in what they do. The Guild of Stories is very much the opposite of that. I mean, like I said, there's implications that there are vampires out there that do that sort of thing. You know, that's what they do. But it is not the main focus of the book, obviously. The good type of vampire that Gilda and Bird and some other ones you're introduced to are the main focus. And because of their give and take approach when it comes to their victims, and the fact that it helps to reinforce positive things in their victims' minds, it's more of I would say the book comes across as more hopeful. You know what I mean? Something that is not really more so negative as it is positive. It's meant to be a very feel-good type of vampire book, which you very rarely see or get. And while it's not my sort of thing in a typical sense, I do appreciate that this type of book exists, because I know not everyone loves the monstrous vampire like I do, and it's great to have a variety of books like this out there for people who like something a bit different. So one of the things I will caution readers on is that this book was published in 1991, and it's 2021 when I read it, okay? When I read it and did this video. And because the last couple chapters of the book take place a fair number of years in the future, like I think the final chapter takes place in the year 2050 or something like that, it does stray a little bit into sci-fi territory. A little bit. It's because the rest of the book was so grounded up until that point, it really did throw me off quite a bit. Not enough for me to think negatively on the book as a whole, but it definitely threw me for a loop, and it was something I was not expecting. So just throwing that out there for anyone else who wants to read it, just in case it's not just you, it just seems to be thrown in there all of a sudden when there's no other indication earlier on in the book that there's going to be anything in regards to science fiction at all. And as a consequence of that, I ended up rating it 4 stars instead of 4.5. It was never going to be a 5-star due to my preferences, but that did drag it down a bit. But for the most part, I have a very positive view on this book. It definitely deserves its place on my bookshelf. I am very thrilled to have read it. It is definitely a treasure of a book that I feel that any aficionado of vampire fiction really should take a look at. And there we have it. That is my review on The Guild of Stories by Joel Gomez. I would like to hear what you thought about the book in the comments below. And with that, I would like to thank you for watching this video today, and I will talk to you next time. Bye!